Hello, movie lovers. Today I'm going to continue on with my series of films covering the movies of 1972, so 50 years ago. What was life like in 50 years ago? What were movies like in 50 years ago? This month of April 2022, I am covering a category that I've termed European auteurs, the European art film, which was a big deal in '72. There were some of the greatest directors of all time released films in 1972, including Eric Rohmer and his movie Love in the Afternoon. And this is the sixth film in Eric Rohmer's series of films that he termed moral tales. In the U.S., it was known as Chloe in the Afternoon. For some reason, I actually prefer the Chloe in the Afternoon to Love in the Afternoon. It's the story of a young lawyer who has a small law practice, successful. He has a wife, a young child, another one on the way. They live in the outskirts of Paris. His law office is in Paris itself. The first section of the film is entitled Prologue, and it's a long prologue. It runs on for about 30 minutes, but it's one of the great, it could be a film unto itself. It's got a lot of narration where Frederick examines his life and his happiness, his love for his wife. And in the afternoons, he likes to spend his time in a cafe. Everybody is out, is back from lunch. It's quiet, it's peaceful, but there's still hustle and bustle all over the place on the Paris streets. The film, especially this section of the film, is kind of a love valentine to the city of Paris. And though he loves his wife, he confesses that he admires all these beautiful women everywhere he turns, whether he's on the train, in the cafe, his secretary. There's beautiful, attractive women everywhere, and he's confident that he'll never stray into infidelity. But he nevertheless muses over what life might have been like with this woman or that woman. And even kind of rueful that he'll never get to know what it would have been like, what a different life would have been like. He's a bit complacent, though, that he will never stray. And in Rohmer's world, as in Rohmer's, one of Rohmer's heroes, Alfred Hitchcock, complacency is the downfall of bourgeois existence. And then the prologue ends in part one. There's two parts, and Chloe appears, and she's sort of she's a distant friend. She's come out of the blue, almost as if she's sent down by fate, by the gods to be a real life, flesh and blood temptation for Frederick to see what will happen. And he knew her in the past, but they were not really any kind of close friends. But we don't really know, what is Chloe up to? Why is she insinuating herself into his life? But he finds that he can talk to her, and he feels somewhat constricted at home in that he often feels that he's playing a role, and there's certain rules of the role of the husband in a bourgeois married life, and there's certain rules that he has to follow, and one of them is not to give up too many of his inner feelings, but he can express them to Chloe. So she is an alternative to Frederick. She offers an alternative. She's not demanding on him. The suspense in the movie is will this relationship, which becomes a friendship, becomes an affectionate friendship, will it be taken to another level? And I don't know. Again, I have to mention Hitchcock because there is suspense in Rohmer's films. It's a kind of an everyday life kind of suspense. It's not on the melodramatic level, for sure. And Rohmer has this really clear contemplative style. It's calm. He doesn't judge his characters. He delights in putting them through these moral dilemmas that these 6 films and the 6 moral tales give to his characters. And he's a great believer in free will. He is a Catholic. Eric Rohmer was a Catholic, and people have to decide for themselves what is right, what is wrong. They have to talk through stuff. People don't like to talk in Rohmer's style. A lot of people don't like to talk in Rohmer. I think it's magnificent, and it's because it does lead to this idea of what is the meaningful things in life. And you have to talk things through. You have to weigh it. It's not self-evident. We have to come to it. It's a journey to come to that realization of what is important in life, and basically what does it mean to live a good life? How do you live a good life? And this kind of Rohmer's approach to cinema and filmmaking, to human beings, is so much different than the movie that I talked about yesterday in this series, which was Last Tango in Paris, and Bernardo Bertolucci, a red-hot director. Passion is melodramatic passion is what life is all about. This is what gets ourselves going in life, is to have passions and to yield to these passions, no matter what the consequences. Rohmer is worried about the consequences of what will happen. So there's big differences there. And of course, also in the visual style, which in Rohmer is very austere, and in Bertolucci is a very florid visual style. And it's interesting to compare them to, from one day to another, sort of a totally different director, working in the same time period, but viewing life and cinema itself from a different point of view. The film doesn't have A-list stars. It has, I forget the man's name now. Frederick is played by, I think, Paul Frey. His name was, not an A-lister. Chloe is played by Zuzu, who was a celebrity. She was a model, singer, good friend of Marianne Faithfull. She was part of the London scene. She was the girlfriend of Brian Jones. She hung out with the Beatles. She came back to Paris. She was involved in some sort of experimental avant-garde type cinema. And then she became, she had a whole new element to her life in being cast in Love in the Afternoon. I mean, she got great notices. So now she had a film career. But there's very much a part of her in Chloe, Zuzu in Chloe, and Rohmer always did that with his actors. You draw in some parts of your life and envelop parts of your life into the scenario before we start filming. And Zuzu now had a film career, but she soon developed a significant addiction to heroin, and then her film career came to a dead halt, and she went to spend several years in an island in the West Indies to try to get herself back into physical shape and kicking the habit. But then when she came back to Paris in the 1990s, I think she was found selling newspapers in the Paris metro. And then she did write a book about the ups and downs of her sort of disordered life that, again, sort of mirrored the character that she plays in Love in the Afternoon. Of the 6 moral tales, I would probably rank Love in the Afternoon as my 3rd favorite. I still like My Night at Maud's and Claire's Knee, I think, are my 2 favorites of the series. But this got great reviews. Roger Ebert, a 4-star review. Vincent Canby gave it a rave review. It was a big hit in New York Film Festival. Rohmer actually came to New York. He was a notorious recluse very rarely traveled anywhere. He was living under an alias. He surrounded himself with beautiful young women who appeared in his films. But that was his temptation, and by all accounts, he lived a chaste life, because he, back at home and totally separate from this world of filmmaking, was a wife and children, which he was totally devoted to. So these kinds of dilemmas and temptations and all, this is not made up stuff. This is something I think that was very much part of Rohmer's own world, in which he translated, I think, brilliantly into a kind of cinematic form. Okay, so next up will be in this series, there's going to be 6 films in total. So the fourth one is going to be Rainer Werner Fassbinder's The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. A wild and crazy movie. I love it. It's one of my favorites of Fassbinder's earlier films. So I've gone from white-hot passion to cool contemplative style to a veritable world of pain in this terrific film that I'm going to be talking about next. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen to me. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.